it is, I don't want to say impossible because there are people that do it, but
Hmm.
it is almost impossible to ever get a meaningful edge in the market. And if you are able to get a meaningful edge in the market, you're doing that over, if you take like Berkshire Hathaway, for example,
Hmm.
that's because they did it over 40 years. They were
Hmm.
able to get an edge in the market because they were so invested long term. It wasn't like they were day trading and in 6 months they
Right.
beat, And I always say that like building wealth is often very unsexy and very boring. You're oftentimes just putting money in index funds and letting it sit there and staying patient and not looking at the ups and downs. But that is not exciting for people. They want instant gratification. They want to get rich overnight. They also are online seeing people saying that they got $1 million off of crypto in like 24 hours. And so they think like, oh, that's actually the only way to build wealth in this country. And so that's where we're kind of in the environment we're in now.
Hmm.
I'm it's kind of, a couple people have referred to it as like a casino culture, a casino
Right.
economy, and it's very much like that.
And the apps kind of make it worse, like Robinhood
Oh yeah.
trading, right? Like every day you're checking your app, you're like, oh, buy, sell. And it's just like you're losing money probably, right? Over the long term. And it's
Yeah, I mean, the gamified
not
features
good.
are wild, and also, and like this actually is especially for young men. If you
Hmm.
think about like the way a lot of young men are participating in the economy, and like because
Hmm.
they're the primary drivers of a lot of this casino behavior, is like Robin, for example, like it has a community aspect. And a
Hmm.
lot of, if you think about like the male loneliness epidemic, a lot of young men want community.
That's so
So I
funny.
think a lot of them kind of get into these kind of paths just through wanting to find community, whether that be on Reddit or Robinhood. And then, of course, there's that whole other element that's like tied into this, which is like sports betting, which is, I think, candidly destroying like an entire generation
Hmm.
of like their financial stability. It's like
Yes.
unbelievably concerning. And then you even take, a lot of these apps, like I think Robinhood actually might be getting into sports betting. Don't quote me on that, but that's what
Oh
I'm saying is
God.
like it's this complete
Hmm.
integration of it's really gambling because you don't have really any control over the outcome of sports betting
Hmm.
with something that is shouldn't be considered gambling, which is investing. So it's all very scary.
Right.
Since we're talking about the concept of gambling and like how it's influencing society a lot these days, what exactly is, like, in your opinion, the source of how gambling has become so prevalent in, current society and like affecting also like young men? Because it really seems like the Gen Z population, especially the male population of Gen Z, are much bigger gamblers in like
Hmm.
whatever way possible than their
Yeah.
families, than their parents.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. So I think there isn't like an individual psychology piece. I mean, gambling is a very psychologically addictive
Hmm.
action. That's why gambling addiction has been around for quite a while. However,
Hmm.
in the past, like what has changed in the past, like almost decade is access. So in
Hmm.
the past, if you really wanted to gamble, you would have to
Right.
go to a casino,
Right.
or sports betting especially was illegal in a lot of
Hmm.
places. So it was like under the table, so it wasn't as accessible. And in 2018, the Supreme Court legalized sports betting in a lot of states. So now it is unbelievably accessible. Also, I'm sure you guys have seen this. You're getting inundated by ads.
So many
And
ads.
so, yeah. So again, it's like one of those things too, where like when you start to see something over and over and over again, your brain normalizes it and thinks that it's like okay. And you get social proof of like celebrities endorsing it. And so again, you have all this unfettered access, and then also this kind of ties into what I was saying before about this idea of like I think everybody, but I think especially young men do feel disenfranchised in the
Hmm.
economy, and so I think a lot of them are looking for ways to get ahead. And so I think that's why you're seeing kind of the rise of like young men getting into crypto and day trading. And I think we're seeing this in sports betting as well. But obviously, I mean, all of it is pretty dangerous because it's very, like I said, it's very hard to get ahead. But sports betting especially is very dangerous because, um, you know, again, you have almost no control over I think actually no control over the outcomes of these things. And then obviously this gets into prediction markets as well. And I think too, I think there was some stat about like a very, very small percentage of sports bettors make up like the lion's share of the playbooks of these apps.
Hmm.
So these are these people that are addicted to sports betting, putting thousands and thousands of dollars into sports betting, losing that money, and then the apps are kind of like raking it in. And yeah, and I think I think it's contributing to like just a larger mental health crisis, especially among young men, because now you're introducing the element of like losing a ton of money, which often can be a trigger for like really intense mental health episodes, and just generally, you know, eroding the way people think about money and risk. Because again, you know, and this goes back to gambling too, when you're gambling, a lot of times you are going through intense cycles of gaining and losing large amounts of money over a very short period of time. And that completely rewires how you think about money and risk. Like if you've been through a 24-hour period where you've lost like a couple $1,000s,
Wow.
that changes how you think about gaining money and losing money in the future. You're like, oh, what's a couple $1,000s? I've won that in a day before, you know, and I think that really does rewire how people, you know, take risks in the future and interact with the economy.
Just to tie this to a previous point that we were discussing earlier was, is this related or not at all to why women are mainly the ones who are controlling the spending within a family? 'Cause men are just pure
Yeah, I mean,
gamblers. It's like let's just throw money away.